Okay, when our general manager reappears.
Do you realize there's 3 different item number 1 on?
You're nuts. Nuts.
I guess we're rolling.
We are rolling. All right, here, yeah, okay, here comes Chuck. Before I open the regular meeting, I will announce that we have adjourned the closed session from our special meeting and we will return to it. And during that, the portion of the closed session that we completed.
No reportable action was taken.
Thank you. I now call to order the regular meeting for Thursday, October 21st, 2014 of the Granada Sanitary District Board. And we will start with a roll call.
President Matthew Clark.
Here.
Vice President Leonard Warren.
Present.
Secretary Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Treasurer David Seaton.
Here.
Director Rick Loman.
Here.
And at the table also is General Manager Chuck Duffy and our legal counsel Jonathan Whitworth, and I'm the Administrator Delia Camito.
All right, and as usual, we start with general public participation. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on any items not on the agenda.
Is our administrator aware that we ran out of
Yes, I
speakers?
put a sheet out because it was quicker than trying to find the forms and put them up. Just write your name and
Okay.
So the real estate issues are not on the agenda. So if there are people here to speak about that, any of those, this is the time for them to speak.
By the way, the real estate issues are not on the agenda. So if you're here to speak on those, you would have to speak now in public participation. Seeing no public participation, we will move to the regular agenda. Item 1, consideration.
Can I speak on that?
Yes.
I think that it's ludicrous that we're talking about our biggest financial expenditures going towards not bettering the community in terms of parks. That our keystone conversation should be about what projects and what investments are we going to make that benefit people in terms of parks and what the payoff is before we start getting into empire building and hiring more staff. And let's focus on what we're actually going to do, what key benefits we're going to derive from taking control of local parks before we commit ourselves into the millions of dollars of potential project fees and long-term management and maintenance costs. I think that there's no way. I made a motion to delay it. I think we've delayed other things in terms of social media and things like that should be addressed on the spot, not even an issue, and we've delayed those for months and months. Something as big as this, the fact that as a board we're going to rush through it, and when public showed up and gave their input, clear as present day, that we're going to potentially, I don't see any benefits from it, especially considering that collaborating with other agencies is going to derive the best project for the community compared to us spearheading anything alone.
And I thank you for your statement on an item not on the agenda.
We shouldn't discuss that.
Well, I want to make another comment, though, because there are probably a lot of people watching this tonight, and it's really simple. Everybody knows that paying rent is throwing your money away. This district has spent somewhere in the ballpark of $500,000 in rent since the time we had the opportunity to buy this building that we were bullied out of buying by a tiny number of people who couldn't read a spreadsheet. And it's appropriate to stop throwing money away on rent. All
right. Now we will move to the regular agenda. Item 1, consideration of district's reorganization into a community services district with addition of parks and recreation powers.
Okay, we are moving towards our October 1st date that we're officially become a CSD. And out of LAFCO's 12 conditions they placed on us, we've completed 10 of them. We've got 2 pending, one of which is the agreement with the County Parks Department for services to help us when we transition to a park and recreation district. And the last thing we've got going is we've got to get a legal description, a meets and bounds description of the newly formed district boundaries. So we're working on getting that now.
Isn't that like, that is different from the sanitary district.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, that changed, and
Yeah.
we had a heck of a time finding the original legal description on which to base it on. So I finally got it from a guy at the State Board of Equalization. He sent it to me because it's from 1958, so.
Well, you know what I said many years ago, what did all of the coastside agencies excel at up through 1997 when there was a sea change? The thing that all the coastside agencies excelled at was losing records.
Well, the good news is the State Board of Equalization has them, because LAFCO didn't have them, the Public Works Department, the county didn't have them.
Well, there's no reason they would, because LAFCO didn't exist until 6 years after this district was formed.
Right. But down from my districts down south, LAFCO actually is the record keeper of the district boundaries, and they've all got it all on GIS and everything like that, so. You know, Martha's a one-person operation, so this doesn't happen up here.
And so after we have it done, you will
Yes.
turn it over to LAFCO, and then
they'll
we'll have it.
from there. So does anyone have any questions?
How much is that gonna cost?
I don't know that yet. We were trying to get the original legal description and see how much it changed, so we can get a price. So it's to San, I don't know what the name of it. It's into Kennedy Jenks, who's subbing it out to a surveyor.
Well, some of the meets and bounds won't have changed, so they don't have to survey.
Right.
It's only up in the hills
Yeah, the
where it's
whole
changed.
kind of bottom half won't change. It'll
Right.
just be those 5 or 6 public parcels we removed from the district boundary. So I'm hoping it's an interesting thing. If you look at the legal description from the south side, it's a lot of different parcels. But if you take the legal description from the parcels we remove, it'll be easier somewhat to cobble together. So we're in that process.
So, and I understand the clerical end of the CSD conversion, but to me, specifically on the parks and powers, shouldn't we be focusing on the short-term projects? You know, there's been people emailing about, requesting about more trash cans, you know, I think public restrooms. You know, I mean, looking at the low-hanging fruit in terms of expenditures and letting everything else drive that in terms of long-term, you know, until we do that, we can't even make employee, you know, I mean, in terms of everything else that we want to, all these directions we want to go in, we have to define, you know, a short, mid, and long-term plan. There's been proposals, obviously, but as a board, we need to strategically, you know, choose among what's been put together by all these various groups before we can commit to the biggest project ever for something that doesn't directly benefit the community in terms of parks and recreation. It benefits this office in terms of having a beautiful building and maybe long-term some capital gains or something. But, you know, I think that as far as this, we should be talking specifically about, that should be primary discussion, and everything else, I think, needs to be delayed until we have time to bring the community involved in this.
Well, that discussion will start on October 1st. We can't have it before then. So.
Then I think it's completely ludicrous to be able to make huge land acquisitions.
What are
Outside
you
of that.
talking about? This is a meets and bounds, which was a condition of approval.
I'm
for
talking
that.
about the whole reorganization of community service district with addition of parks and recreation powers.
We can't discuss the plans until the public meeting on October 2nd. That's when we'll start setting priorities. That's when we'll start public input. The public should know that also. October 2nd is the big day for that. So pre-arguing or discussing things here is kind of irrelevant because we can't do anything until October 2nd.
Right.
Then I hope we get a flood of input. I hope we have 5,000 ideas plop into our lap on October 2nd. So I think that's good. And that's when we'll start.
So my point is, prior to then, how could we be committing to all these commitments in terms of making appointments and things, those things should also be put off until
What do you
after
think
that.
we're committing to right now?
We committed to name a person. We have no commitments, we have no ideas, we've discussed nothing. You're going on some assumption that something's been decided already that has not happened. That's totally irrelevant at this point.
We're-
So until we start doing that, that's when we discuss that.
And what's the risk in delaying it?
We can't discuss it. No matter what we say, you want to discuss it, and we can't discuss it.
But can we delay it?
The district is adhering to the requirements of state law.
Can we delay any?
We can do
appointments?
anything we want to on October 2nd. We could say, oh, let's spend $3 million on parks, let's spend $10 million.
And prior to October 2nd, we could own a big parcel of land.
Sanitary district certainly can.
Does this seem logical in terms of what's in the best interest of the community and letting the community drive it? Or does this seem logical in terms of a board making decisions, springing it and giving a couple, giving people in the community a couple?
Why do you
I mean,
assume a decision has been made? Excuse me?
What took place?
There is a
obviously.
major discussion that has to occur before anybody considers anything in the purchase of that. I am not going into any meeting assuming I'm about to buy a $2 million building.
So my only
on
thing is, what's the
That
risk in
is-
delaying it?
That's not on the agenda.
It's not on the
as to
agenda.
Timing of anything. The only thing that's on the agenda is whether to instruct a negotiator about a variety of options, everything from the lease to this building.
Those are separate issues. We can appoint a negotiator specifically for this lease, 100% on board with that. But to be specifically targeting other projects, no. That's where the whole community input needs to be.
But always that-
People have expressed it. It came clear from the comments were perfect, perfect spectrum of views that, how could we be jumping the gun on that?
Well, just from a procedural standpoint, okay, we do not have on the agenda tonight a decision as to whether to buy, to delay, to tell our negotiator to do anything, except in closed session, if we want to tell him, contact people. That'll be decided later in closed session. But right now, it would be out of order to have a motion to say, let's delay even considering that subject, because we just had a vote to appoint him as negotiator. When you do that, then you instruct your negotiator in closed session.
Then I guess can I make a motion to delay any potential expenditures over,
No.
it's.
It's
No.
not on the agenda.
No, you may not. It's not on the
You
agenda.
can ask to be placed on the next agenda.
The
Yes,
agenda item
you
here
can
is
do that.
discussion of an update on what's happening with the community services district proposal.
And
Has nothing to do.
and we can't, to me, we can't be making everything else that comes after this. This is the most important element of it. And as a board, we need to present what our strategy is, not all these different proposals that have been circulating for years. We need to come up with, of that, what are we taking in? What is our strategy? And let everything else drive that. We can't be even looking at office space. We need to know head counts, long-term projections, everything else has to drive that. It'd be like a business saying, let's go out and get land and hire a bunch of employees, and then we'll figure out what our business plan is gonna be. It makes no sense why, even if this was the most prime, best deal we could find, it still wouldn't make sense to jump the gun
Keep
on.
bringing the discussion back to purchase of land, which this board has not decided to pursue or not pursue at this point in time. So there's nothing to delay because the board hasn't made a decision to pursue it or not pursue it.
And we
We
can't
haven't
talk
made that
about it now
decision.
in this open session,
And
so
it's-
we are
it's-
setting ourselves
right.
up
So Chuck.
for
you-
formal
you-
complaints
you-
at this point.
You don't need any board action to go out and get the meets and bounds
No,
done?
no. Like I said, we're just working diligently to get it done, and we just got delayed by finding the original legal description.
I do have a question about the meets and bounds survey. This will include a field survey. Will they,
I don't believe it will, actually.
oh,
I don't think it will. So it's a meets and bounds survey that has to be in the format specified by the State Board of Equalization.
so the markers for the bounds of the new district will not be set in the field?
No,
Ah.
got it. That'd be a lot of markers.
Yes, indeed. I ask that because people always ask me, where does the burn strip end and where does Caltrans start? And,
Well, that's a separate issue from the boundaries of the district. That's boundaries of district-owned property, which someday this board is gonna browbeat staff into actually getting marked,
Yeah, well, we had it marked, but they're gone.
permanently marked.
All right,
So, no further questions, I've got nothing further.
okay. Let's move to item number 2, consideration of short-term agreement with San Mateo County Parks Department to implement the Mid-Coast Action Plan for Parks and Recreation as an interim plan for services. And I'll have a staff report.
I'm going to make a staff report because I've been discussing this with the county parks director, who is present, Maureen Finley. So as Chuck reported to you in the last agenda item, this is one of the 2 conditions of approval that LAFCO placed on us that we still have to complete. First one being the survey. The second one being that we are to enter into a contract with the county parks department to be provide interim services in furtherance of the action plan, which was adopted through the county studies that have been done in, I believe, 2002 and 2007. And they came up with an action plan for park needs, community park needs, neighborhood park needs within our district jurisdiction. And so we are to carry that plan out as our interim plan, as our initial way of going forward. And we are to enter into contract with the County Parks Department to provide those services to help us move ahead, because we don't have staff to sort of hit the ground running. They do. And the concept here was to enter into a contract that has been presented to your board, and you should have the most recent version in front of you, and I sent that version this afternoon as well, electronically. Basically, it's a standard type of contract, and I won't try not to go into too much detail about it and just try to answer questions, but as any contract, it's got services to be rendered and compensation to be paid. It's got a section on coordination between our district and the county parks department as to how do we develop the plan that you've all been talking about, what are our priorities going to be, how do we get input from the public, what order does that take, when do we adopt the plan, that's in here. We also have a section on provision of services, and many of these services at this stage are the initial things that you would do to contact, for instance, the school district. Are we going to work with the school district to have any maintenance of their playfields in exchange for availability for the public? Are we going to do things on the Burnham Strip in terms of trails? I'm just saying examples. Are we going to put picnic tables or swings on the boulevard medians? That's all going to be a process, and we need staff to go develop that plan with us, because we need to end up with a product at the end that we all say, that's the plan, that's how we're going to move forward. So there's language in here about how that occurs. There's actually language looking to the future when we have what are called venues in this contract, in other words, recreation venues, park venues, and how do they get maintained, and how are they managed, and we would be looking initially anyway toward the County Parks Department to provide us services in that regard. And then there's a lot of boilerplate in here about, that the county would be an independent contractor with us, that they can't assign it without our consent, no discrimination, child protection. When we ultimately hire people, you have to do background checks on the employees to make sure that they are not sex offenders or have records of certain types of crimes. The rest of it is really all standard boilerplate that go into what is called an independent contractor agreement. So the basic concept here is that County Parks Department will provide some services, we will pay them for it. We will first, working with them, prioritize, decide what services we need, how much we can afford, and then send them off to carry that out. Any questions?
Just real quick on Exhibit C with the insurance page.
Yeah.
It says they provide their own insurance and things like that, so
Right.
that won't be an additional cost. That's sort of, if they're working for us and something happens, they're insuring their work.
Right.
That's.
And of course, if it's our property and that was the cause of it, then we have insurance.
Okay.
But this insurance requirement is just regarding county personnel that are doing work on our behalf. Don't we still have to have our own insurance for other types of claims?
Yes, and we have
And
insurance
that's fine.
for our property, for our employees, for actions we take.
I have a number of comments on this.
Let me ask a question first. I read the previous version, and I had not had a chance to read the version that was furnished today. I understand council did put in the email that nothing substantive had been changed, but is there anything worth mentioning?
Well, let me mention a couple of things. One is that when in talking with county parks, they wanted to be sure that there was a process that this district conducted to get community input and decide what we wanted to do and what were the priorities. And they would help us with that, but they wanted to make sure that that was in the contract, that we were going to do that. So that's in the contract. I can give you another example is that in,
Jonathan, I'm not clear on something in terms of what you just said compared to what you said a few minutes ago. In terms of the district working with the community to decide what the priorities are, who's going to be driving that?
the district.
Okay, because that's
But
not the
we will have
impression I got.
staff help from them to do that, and they will be able to inform us in terms of, you want to choose a priority between parks on the boulevard or parks on Williams Strip. There are rules about parks and how you set them up and what are the safety features you need, et cetera. And we would anticipate that they could give us costs about that, information about how you design, and so that would help you decide what is the best priority.
So county involvement is going to be just logistic and knowledge support, not.
It almost sounds like a consulting arrangement.
They would
I mean,
produce the final plan.
No decision making. Well, see, okay, right there I have a problem
No,
with that.
the county park staff would produce a plan to submit to your board, you decide. Not the
Okay.
county board of supervisors, you.
All right.
So, yeah, just look at them as a consultant that you're hiring for their expertise, just like you hired Jonathan or myself.
It's a good way to put it. The Parks Director is here, and maybe she can answer questions or make a presentation if she wants to. But first, let's get through questions from board members. So I was just going to mention that one of the things we learned in this process was, under Exhibit A, I had given an example of the possibility of renting space for indoor recreation, like Boys and Girls Club or whatever. I did learn that the County Parks Department does not operate in that area on indoor recreation.
Because that's local parks and the county's not in the local parks business.
No, because they don't do indoor parks or indoor recreation. So if we want to make that a priority, we will have to find staff of our own or another consultant to do that kind of thing. So I wanted to mention that to you, because that's something that's different from this.
Now, years ago, on the first go-around with this, the board was sort of counting on being able to contract with Half Moon Bay to do it, except that Half Moon Bay no longer has their own staff. They're contracting it out. But one thing that this board could potentially do is evaluate whether we would want to contract that with the same, I'm actually unclear right now on who Half Moon Bay is contracting it out to. It was City of San Carlos, but no longer is. But, you know, we might want to, at some point, evaluate whether we should contract out with the same organization, which, if this board determines that's appropriate, could provide a more seamless, uniform setup for the coast side.
Well, this agreement isn't standing on its own. I mean, we're still gonna be talking to the school district. I've already had discussions with Half Moon Bay staff. Hey, we're gonna be a CSD October 1st. Let's start talking sooner rather than later on shared opportunities we can have for shared programs on the coast side. So the county's just lending their expertise in certain areas that we don't have it, that we don't have staffing, we don't have the expertise, so we can use it.
My only comment is that since the initial term is about 2.5 years or so, and then 2 one-year options, 2 additional one-year periods for renewal, I would like to see the initial length shortened with longer options on the back end, because no matter what, it's going to be boiler, things are going to need to begin to be developed rapidly in terms of, being on the same page, just in terms of expectations and everything else. So I think we're better off, on the front end with the shortest periods that are okay with going, so that we could work everything through and then renegotiate a good longer-term contract,
Can I ask a
as we work
follow-up
through
to that? Tag team my question on to his. Does it, if we have the 120-day notice where we can cancel it, how relevant is the term of the contract?
Well, I think that's an answer to the question of should we shorten this?
Right, so can you answer both of those at the same time?
Well, it's a balancing act. You want to say something, Chuck?
Yeah.
You can pick any.
I'd say how relevant is it? Not very, because again, it's like our consultant services. You can end our consultant agreements in 60 days or something like
But there's
that.
a good faith agreement with you guys and with them
Yeah.
that we would be going toward.
Right, so
to the contract
what happens in the,
unless
what happens in
something
the real
was blatant.
world is you've got 60
Yeah.
days, or in this case, 120 days to end it, or you just stop calling them and using their services. So we've got wide latitude in that case. So.
So what the condition of approval said is that we are to enter into a short-term agreement with the County of San Mateo Parks Department to implement the Mid-Coast Action Plan as an interim plan. So, short-term agreement. And, your point is well taken. It doesn't say it has to be 2.5 years.
It says here October 2014 to June 2017.
So it's about 2.5.
2.5,
A little
so,
more,
yeah.
a little more.
So
Yeah, a little more,
I
so.
think we're now discussing what the meaning of is. What does short-term mean? I'm, at the risk of getting nasty phone calls, I'm tending to agree with Director Seaton that 2.5 years doesn't strike me as short-term.
But again, to your point, it's 2.5 years, but you can end it in 120 days.
Right.
So.
That's why I wanted to tag team my question onto his.
So.
To me, the real thing is it's going to need to get renegotiated no matter what. So why wait 2.5 years to tie up that many loose? I think 18 months is more realistic in terms of a good, what I would like to see, just in terms of with a longer term. Because then if we're only renegotiating a 1-year period, we're just starting over. I think.
All right,
I think
let
it's-
me bring-
based on what you just said, let me make a suggestion, which is that we build in to this a reevaluation of the contract much earlier than the 2.5 years. So, in other words, if we don't like the way things are going, give us another option besides sending the 120-day notice to cancel. Say we want to reopen and possibly adjust the terms.
I think it would be good to hear from the Parks
I was just
Director
gonna say, yeah.
to see, how that affects their planning and how they work this into their system. Because maybe it's important to have 2.5
Absolutely.
years, I don't know.
All right, maybe we should.
Yeah.
I was the one to put the 2.5 years out there, it wasn't that they asked for that.
Okay.
I suggested 1.5.
Actually,
Given the complications of initiating Parks and Rec programs, I think we're likely to find that 2.5 years is a short time. Yeah. Go ahead,
I
Rick.
think we entered into similar arguments or discussions, I should say, when we were talking about this in the first place. And the net result of the discussion is none of the points are relevant to the discussion. You have a contract, it doesn't specify anything we have to do, there's no projects in there. If it's gonna even delay a little bit, having to go back and rewrite things and get signatures again or negotiate some more, there's no commitment to us in there that forces us to do anything.
Right, like I said, we can just stop using
So we could
their
just stop using
services.
it as the thing.
Right.
So I would rather, as I said it the first time this was brought up, just move forward with it, and let's not even potentially mess up the thing of not being a GSD on October 1st.
CSD.
And CSD, and we have 4 or 5 options to get out of this contract when we went to the thing. So I'd, rather than sending Jonathan out, say 18 months rather than 29 or whatever it is, to me, that's irrelevant. I mean, that's not worth spending I understand we spent 15 minutes or so discussing this, I just don't, to me, it's a moot point. So I don't know if there was danger in there, or if there was restrictions in there, or something we were gonna lose or hurt the community, I'd say, boom, let's talk about it. This is just an agreement to work with the county, that we can kill it in the town.
Yeah, and the fact that, with that 120-day cancellation thing, I'm not that concerned, but I do have one major concern with this. When I was reading this afternoon, I only started with the final version, so, thereby validating my old policy of never do today what you can put off till tomorrow, because tomorrow you may not have to do it. What's missing from this contract is the board. I saw a dozen references to the general manager approving things. I saw no references whatsoever to the board approving things. And what I'm concerned about is the county deciding, let's do this, plop some big thing down on the Burnham Strip property, and the general manager saying, yeah, okay, go ahead and do it, and the board being up in arms after we see it appear there, and we can't have that.
Oh, we can change every reference to the district if you'd like.
Yeah, when it says district, that means district board, but I can add.
Okay, but there are way too many things in here that can be approved, that can be approved simply by the general manager without the board involvement. And, I'm particularly concerned that the action plan was developed by one county staffer who's no longer there, who summarily dismissed the top 3 items that kept coming up on the Parks and Rec needs assessment because he didn't agree with them. So the action plan is fundamentally flawed in that respect, that it doesn't reflect what the community wants, it reflects what the one county staffer wanted. And that's why I want a lot more board involvement on what actually gets done here than the contract as written provides for.
So the general manager has just said he would be happy to have wherever it says general manager, that it just say district board, and when it says district, it says district board.
No, I think it should just say district.
No, say district.
That's how we usually do it.
The district
I'm
is the
carrying out
district
your
board.
action.
I don't know
You're giving me
what-
policy and I'm carrying that out,
is-
so.
If council says that's the way to do it,
Let's support that, that's fine.
Yeah, if you're worried about the,
The rogue GM theory?
yes, the GM acting outside direction from the board, that's a simple change, and we'll cover it.
well, it's just that the board is much more familiar with the community. I think everybody knows that I think our general manager is doing a great job, but, at the end of the day, he goes home to the other end of the state and is just not necessarily as in tune with the community as the directors are.
Yeah, so that's no problem, we'll make the change.
Okay.
He does a great job,
He does do a great job, indeed. We do have, are there any other board comments? We do have the County Director of Parks and Recreation with us tonight, Marlene Finley. Would you like to address
Sure.
these points or any others?
And
Sure.
before Marlene speaks, I want to go up there. I'm going to steal Jonathan's thunder and thank her and Jonathan actually for getting this turned around quickly, because it was lying by the curb for a while and they got it up and going in a week, so thank you.
Well, I meant to say thank you too, Marlene was
I didn't want to steal your
fantastic.
thunder.
I meant to, I just, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marlene Finley, the Director of County Parks, and we're public servants. LAFCO board said that, we would provide initial services for a short period of time, and so we're here to help you. I don't see us making decisions. I want you to let us know what you want and what you need based on the public's input. So that's how I go about doing my job. And we have the Mid-Coast Community Action Plan as our template to get started. There's a lot of startup work to do. County Parks doesn't do much program. The Boys and Girls Club is contracted now by Half Moon Bay to provide their recreation programs. So we're here to help as much as you want us to. I'm kind of disheartened that you start out talking about how short the contract's going to be and how to get out of it, because we're just here to help. So that's all I had to say.
We'll see, if you do a really great job, then the contract will keep going.
Well, thank you.
And,
You can get out of it too,
That's more likely.
I will point out that with the exception of one specific county department that I won't name, I think that the county personnel do outstanding job. And anybody who wants to know can contact me privately, and I'll name that one department.
But it's not the Parks Department.
Right, it is specifically not the Parks Department. I think the Parks Department does an amazing job with not much. The county has traditionally very underfunded the Parks Department. So,
Looking for a motion after?
Sort of with the on-the-fly substitution terms here, I suppose that we're ready to approve it.
We're ready to put a motion on.
All right.
So your motion is going to,
I move to accept the short-term agreement with County Parks with the modifications from general manager to district, as discussed earlier.
second.
What did you wanted on the motion? You wanted to give me permission to make procedural changes?
Right, because we did just put this together in a short period of time. If there are any minor, or what I would call ministerial type items, in other words, if we find out that the county doesn't have $1 million in insurance or something, and we're being treated as everybody else, we should accept what they do have. That was a bad example, but I mean, that's what we're talking about here, so that we can move ahead and your general manager can make these minor, fact-based, I guess, would say, not judgment-based type decisions to tweak this if we need to. We made a lot of progress, so we may not need to make many, but.
So I have a request regarding that. Now, it's probably not appropriate to build this into the contract, but my request would be that whenever the general manager approves any of those kind of things, that he immediately notifies the board, just in case enough of us have a problem with it, that we could call a special meeting and say, don't do that. So that wouldn't need to be in the contract, would it?
No, I'll just do that.
Would you like to modify your
I'll
motion?
accept the addition to grant our general manager minor procedural modification
I
powers.
thought that was written in here already.
It is.
This
Well,
is
he didn't
with-
say it out loud, though. so.
This is with regard to the language in the contract. If there's something we need to tweak, because we need to get this to the Board of Supervisors in the next couple of weeks, I would say.
Right, but I thought what I read actually gives the general manager the authority to make those
But in
tweaks.
that part of the contract is now going to say the district board.
Oh, okay, so you want to accept that one provision from the mass change that we just discussed?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Would you like to re-second?
Sure.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Well, I forgot one other thing, though. The impression I got from reading this is that we're not going to do anything for a year? Did I somehow misinterpret this?
No, we are starting October 2nd to take public input.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if in October the board says, yeah, go put some benches out on the Burnham Strip, are we going to be able to do that? In less than a year?
Well, less than a year, yes. But, it's going to take time. as soon as we can, there's nothing to
There's
stop.
no provision, yeah.
There's nothing to stop you from doing that if we go through the process. We work with them, find out, there's probably rules about picnic tables in terms of if they have to be level, et cetera. So we need to check that out. We're not just gonna go run out there and put a picnic table down on the slope like this. So
Really? Well, obviously, we would say, okay, we want a picnic table over there, county parks, what's it gonna take for you to get a picnic table over there?
that's what we're
Right?
gonna do,
But
yes.
we're gonna be able to do that in less than a year?
Yes.
Okay. Because
All right.
I think there's a lot of people out in the public that are just champing at the bit to have us do certain things. And I imagine we'll hear from them in October.
I hope so. All right, I believe that we've exhausted those two items.
Matthew, did you call for
Did
public
we
comment?
actually vote?
I can't remember. Did
No,
anyone?
you didn't. Is there anybody that wants to?
Yeah, any public
No,
comment?
I did not, actually. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to comment on this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on.
Did we vote actually?
Didn't we vote?
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
I get confused when they started talking about it again. Okay.
Okay. Item number 3, consideration of resolution establishing compensation for the position of district administrator. And we'll hear from our GM.
Okay, I have spoken with our employees, and based on the parameters your board provided me in closed session, we have come to an agreement for a 6% salary increase this year for Delia and Erin. So they've agreed to that, so now your board has to approve that in open session to close negotiations.
Okay, I move,
Actually, items 3 and 4, he just discussed.
Okay, yes, sorry.
should we do those two separate motions, or?
Yes.
Okay, I move we adopt resolution next in order. Resolution establishing compensation for the position of district administrator, and the fill-in-the-blank number is 6%?
Yes.
That's the motion.
I'll second that.
All right. Any other comments? All those in favor? Say
Aye.
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 I'll abstain.
4 ayes, 1 abstention, Director Seaton. All right. Item 4, consideration of resolution establishing compensation for the position of assistant administrator.
And the general manager's recommendation was also 6%?
Yes.
Okay, I move adoption of resolution next in order. Resolution establishing compensation for the position of assistant administrator with the fill-in-the-blank of 6%. And I guess for the public watching who doesn't have this in front of them, both of these, I think, say effective September 1st.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Assuming no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
4 yes, 1 abstention. Item 5, consideration of report on ongoing issues by district sewer authority, mid-coast side representatives. Who's giving us the SAM rundown?
I'll jump in and I'll be the straight man and Leonard can do color on it. I'll try to there were lots of little items. I'll just go through quickly if you want me to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to sort of zoom through a bunch of little things.
Can you pause when there's noise out on the street?
No. That's what we have microphones for. We adopted some amendments to the SAM administrative policy that was voted on. These were based on CCWD and then amplified by our committee which worked on that. We did some modifications to the new general manager's contract as we went along. Then the ad hoc recycled water committee report was given, and basically at that time we had started meetings, had some general discussions, and we wanted to bring in the representative from the golf course to discuss further.
Is that still Bruce?
Yes. I guess I can also report at the same time that we've had another meeting with Bruce that was very congenial and instructive. The basic premises were, he's agreed that to, again, like we had before years ago, accept the recycled water.
Rick, for the public and those who don't know, who's Bruce?
Oh, Bruce from, I'm not sure which organization.
I think it's Ocean Colony Partners, but in any case, he runs the Ocean Colony Golf Course.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rick, how is the issue of, he had a problem with the water before, it was too salty, I think. So would Sam use additional treatment to fix the water before sending it to him?
There is no final agreement on that because they never tracked down the source of the initial high nitrates or whatever it was.
Oh, I thought it was salt.
Well, they're going to look at that. Lots of golf courses do something like once a week, they have cleansing watering with real water, and that pulls down the salts or anything else. But I think they never fully investigated where the nitrates or the salts came from. So that's just going to be part of the ongoing work that they're going to look at.
It's probably worth also looking at what Daly City does. They do what they refer to as manufacturing recycled water for the 3 golf courses, and they actually do specific treatment to make the water acceptable to the golf courses. I think it's primarily adding gypsum.
I think all of those are under consideration at this point. I
but
mean, no decisions have been made on
But
that.
it's worth communicating with Daly City to find out what processes work for them.
They know, they've been in contact with pretty much every golf course in California. And they reviewed all the golf courses, what their problems are, where the water comes from. They know tons about this, which is really good.
Okay, but which water has the high salt content? Is it the groundwater or the SAM water?
Sam?
The SAM water, after, we have, years ago, we did a quick pilot run where we rented this big box that came in and it made recycled water. We stuck it in a truck and ran it out to the golf course and they threw it on the grass. Then a bunch of politics got involved and we missed out on some grants and the process died for a while.
Let me ask you this, which SAM directors and who from CCWD is involved in these meetings?
We have Alifano. We had some mixed people because Scott was on, Scott Boyd Scott Boyd representing SAM, Alifano and I representing SAM. We also had Ken Coverdale from CCWD. David Dixon is at some of the meetings. And also we have Dwight from Montera representing Montera Water.
As a water district.
As a water district. So everybody's involved. It's moving forward, very friendly. What's different than last time is that there's a possibility that CCWD will just go out and get the bonds. Boom, it's over.
You mean to finance the full-blown
They are
addition?
looking at that. Any grants that come in, icing on the cake, that's all great, but to get the thing moving, they might just go out and get the bonds. This isn't totally final yet, but they're willing to take the step just to move this thing along.
Now, are all the discussions still under the concept plan that the recipients, the customers for the recycled water will pay full costs and there will be no net cost to the sewer ratepayers?
Everybody's looking at that and they're discussing various ways of looking at it. That's still the basic principle, but it's been brought up by other people that doing recycling is also good for the community in general. So the actual price, they have some parameters. The golf course has said we're willing to go up significantly higher than they are, so they're being very good about that. They said you can't go above X, and they draw a line. We cannot pay for this because we've got our own free water in the well. But they're willing to pay much more money than they're paying now, which is they're taking on their community burden.
Well, the reason for that
I
is
know,
because it
but
gives them a
that's
reliable
not
source.
decided, and it's not a part of this report, so I can't answer all the future questions. That was one of the intents, but it could easily be said by other people, this is a community, and this is the right thing to do, and there are other reasons and cross benefits. But the good news is the golf course is in, CCWD is in, SAM is in. They're going to start redoing the reports real quick, probably hire the consultants to come in, do a quick update of all the costs. So then very quickly we will know all the costs, the initial, and again, they're not looking at 75 users and multiple pipelines shifting stuff to Montera. What it was kind of decided is let's do the quick project. Let's get it up and running. Let's get water to the golf course. There's a pipeline already there in case nobody knows. Show success, show that SAM can work together, show that we can do recycled water, boom, it's done. Now everybody step back and say, okay, we did that. Now let's make it better. Let's get it out to other places. There's still the fantasy of getting it up to Skylon way at the top of the hill if they can ever get a pipe that way, because that's like the biggest user of water in the community.
Well, Skylon can feel free to build the pipeline.
Anyway, so that's the report on that. I think it's very positive. It's moving forward.
One quick note on that. I happened to catch a snippet of the CCWD meeting where Coverdell was reporting on it, and he said to the CCWD board that, I don't remember his exact words, but essentially he's encouraged and he thinks it's going to happen this time.
Yep. So I think that's very good news for the community. Other items, we got a report back on the Princeton Force Main surge protectors, and there was a report saying that we still think we need these 5 air vacuum relief valves that we've been discussing. Everybody has pretty much agreed to, keep our big pipeline going. That's what we really need to do. That's going to be moving forward probably, maybe at the next meeting. They're hiring, they've put out the bids for this new collections maintenance worker. They got 2 good candidates. They expect that once they do background checks, one of these people will work out just fine. And that's adding into the whole collections with the new truck we bought earlier. We've kind of put on hold the idea of direct metering of the Granada Sanitary District, which is us, for a little while. It's pretty pricey, and we're looking at probably other things with the joint powers agreement, ways to not spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to the community, not to get anything out of it. So we're still looking at that. I don't want to go into the whole history of that right now. We set up the committee again to work on setting up all the parameters for the general manager's performance rating. They formed the ad hoc JPA study committee. Leonard is going to be representing us on that. Half Moon Bay has kind of helped push this along now. As everybody knows, there have been controversies on SAM, how to divvy up the money. We feel sometimes we're getting hit unfairly. This is basically the possibility of up to and including rewriting the whole joint powers agreement. The committee will study the good news and the bad news and get back to us. If people have any ideas, you can certainly throw them in. It was kind of a fuzzy document set up many, many years ago because a harsh document never would have been accepted. So now we've got experience, we know where the problems are. We'd like to eliminate a lot of the contention. I think that's a good news. It's not committing us to anything, it's just saying they're going to do the study. So that's a good thing.
So we need to make sure that our general manager and council communicate to me any
Rewrite it.
of their suggested changes, let's say.
Honestly, you start from scratch and pull all that stuff out.
A constitutional convention.
I think even better, maybe the approach, like you said, instead of trying to tweak things, if the community or Chuck or anybody has input, say, these are 7 principles that we want to see in the new JPA.
Yeah, so,
You know, split these up here, or lock these in permanent rates,
right,
do this, change the voting, assign this, rather than trying to help, I don't know, another word other than a bad document. You know, lay out the principles and just sweep through the
Yeah.
whole thing, is fine.
I'm sure there's
So
something in the
I'll
current
talk to
document we
John.
can keep.
The title. A couple other things
I don't
really
know about that.
quickly. We authorized to finalize this contract for the digesters, a contract to basically evaluate the whole thing and how to, you know, either replace it, training of the people and all that. And then we've authorized another contract with SRT Consultants to do 5 or 6 little things that they've kind of been working on anyway. So, and our next meeting is next week.
As in a few days.
A few days, Monday.
So, I'll throw one thing in that isn't driven from the draft minutes that are in here that Rick was working from. Tentatively, how long has Rob been there? Been like 4 or 5 months now, I think?
Yeah.
And so far, people probably know that I typically don't say anything good about the SAM general manager. I think that Rob is probably easily the best general manager that SAM has had in the whole time I've been on the board. I think all of the board agrees. Rick, would you say that?
From what we've seen so far, I think he's just got an outstanding manner. He's serious. He's got a very varied history.
But
and he wants to be
specifically,
here.
you think that I'm right in that all of the SAM directors think he's doing a good job?
Yeah, and I think especially even little things like, there's the manager's report at the end of the meeting. We used to get a couple bullet points. Now we got like a 4 or 5 page document the last time. And if we hadn't cut him off, he would have just kept talking. So, he's very thorough, and, you know, you ask a question and boom, he's completely answered the next time. So I think the staff likes him, the directors like him, he's easy to work with, and I think it's going to work out really well. I've seen no danger signs, I think it's really.
And he did almost explicitly say that he hopes to have this job until he retires.
Yep.
So,
How old is he?
we're not allowed to ask. You know, the board doesn't know, we're not allowed to ask. There's some silly employment law stuff that says you can't ask a candidate held there.
Okay, I'm done for moving on that.
I would just point out that the average daily flows seem to have normalized.
Yeah,
back-
every time I make a big stink out of it, it magically normalizes again.
Yeah. Back
I'll make
to-
a sink every month.
Oh, you don't think you could really do that?
Yeah, you ever been there when the wind's blowing the wrong way?
Yeah. All right, we'll move to the consent agenda, on which there are 4 items.
Did you see this one blip on the rain report?
Yeah, but it's 0.12 inches.
Yeah, but it's just a really weird thing. We have this straight line along the bottom, and then there's this spike, except the scale is bizarre.
Yes.
The scale is bizarre and makes it look like it's a lot of rain.
Okay. Yeah, they adjust the scale every time depending on how much the rain is.
Yeah.
Make it always look like a
Oh,
peak.
you know, I forgot, and Rick forgot, there is one other notable thing to report. And of course, Chuck knew this before the SAM board did, which is that the director of, not director, the manager of technical services
Oh.
is
Tony
retiring
Coleman.
at the end of the year.
Bye, Tony.
So he's kind of been the backbone of
The
SAM
constant.
for a long time. So apparently he started working there when he was 12, because if you look at him, he doesn't look to be retirement
He
age.
looks young.
Well, you can only take so much. All right, consent agenda. There are 4 items. Would anyone like to
Yes,
make a
yes.
motion?
No, we need to hold, oh, I didn't mark it on my agenda, and I can't believe you missed this. We need to hold the warrant report. It's got a huge error in it.
All
So,
right.
if nobody else has anything to hold, I will move, where's the consent agenda? I will move approval of item 6, special and regular meeting minutes for July 17th. Item 8, July 2014 financial statements. Item 9, assessment district distribution number 1-14/15 for $5,119.07.
David, the motion on the table, Leonard pulled the warrants, so the motion on the table is to approve the consent agendas, items 6, 8, and 9.
Do we have a second?
Sure.
Second, Tasha.
All right, this is consent, no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Okay, turning to the warrant report. So I'm reading down the warrant report, and OCD, I read the account names. And so I get down to 5571, a loan payment for the COP refi, and the account is 6190 utilities. But then wait, the next line, which is a payment to CCWD for the Naples Beach Pump Station, is 6190 utilities. So everything's out of whack here. The accounts are off by one line, and then we get, it basically kind of flops all over the place, but the second half of this page, the account numbers are just totally out of whack. They don't line up. They're off by a line, basically. So I don't know what to do here.
It got shifted in that cell somehow. But you're approving, you're approving the warrants and the payments, not the account codes. We can.
All right, so
It's correct on our QuickBooks. What
can-
happens is we export it from QuickBooks to Excel, and something broke in that
all right, so
translation.
can we get at the next meeting a corrected version of this? All right, so if nobody else has any comments, I move to approve the 2014, August 2014 warrants for $250,095.83.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Item number 10, committee reports, seminars, conferences, or committee meetings.
Just one quick thing, this also affects me in October. I've been asked to go to the LAFCO convention, which is in Ontario, California, so don't think
Convention?
like I'm going to anything fun.
Are you going to miss either of the?
It is October 16th,
Uh-oh.
which is that October 16th meeting, which I just checked before the meeting. I will not be here for the October meeting. Because it's Thursday, I'll be, leaving before that. I'll be leaving Wednesday night,
But we're still going to have the October 2nd meeting that you'll be at.
and that'll be fine. And again, this has nothing to do with GSD, LAFCO is paying for it, so there's no effect on us, but I'll be representing LAFCO for that, so.
Representing LAFCO.
Well, I'm gonna be our rep. I don't know how many other people are going, but I had volunteered because I said I have lots of free time, so if other people who are more senior to me on LAFCO don't want to go, I'd be happy to represent LAFCO.
So how many LAFCO meetings have there been since you were appointed, and how many of them have you been seated at the
Three, I've
table?
been to all, and I've been seated at 2. And
Pretty good.
Big ones are coming up, the Harbor District and the whole North Coast analysis. So, looking forward to lots of fun stuff happening there. So,
Well, I've been to Ontario, just knock yourself out.
I used to live in Southern California, and I don't know where Ontario is.
Well,
it's
this
going
is not
east,
the one in Canada.
easter direction,
Yeah.
moving out, like Pomona.
think Riverside.
Somebody might be from Ontario, so I really don't want to say anything else.
All right. Item number 11, attorney's report.
No report.
On the SAM attorney's report, there was some stuff about Public Records Act litigation and stays and appeals and blah, blah, blah. And I wonder if you are tracking that to report to this board regarding personal devices.
Personal devices versus non-governmental computers.
Well, the email that might be related to the agency business that's on your cell phone or your, who knows what, iPad, PC.
So the California Supreme Court has accepted for making a decision, in other words, they have invalidated the Court of Appeal decision that said that your personal devices cannot be accessed, even if you have governmental, part of your Board of Directors communications on them. The Court of Appeal said you could not access them. The Supreme Court took that case. That doesn't necessarily tell you which way they're going to rule, but they felt it was important enough to have the Supreme Court decide it instead of have the Court of Appeals decide it. And sometimes you get different decisions from different courts of appeals. So we'll know that in probably 9 months to a year.
And when they have a decision, you'll let us know.
Yes, I will. I thought I emailed about the Supreme Court taking that, but maybe I didn't. I intend to, and I will certainly keep you posted.
So what's the current state of the law? Because the appeals court ruling is stayed, where are we now?
The Court of Appeals opinion is not only stayed, it becomes null and void. So there is no decision on that subject. So there's no precedent, there's no law about that, because that's a case of first impression. It's probably another reason that the California Supreme Court took it.
Well, I sure hope they interpret it my way, which is that the communications are public record, but not the devices themselves.
I think I've never heard that they said, anybody saying that the devices were thereby made public.
Well, the people who have filed the action basically want to say, hand over your cell phone so I can look through it and see if there's any agency business on it. That's what they want.
Well, normally that process would go the other way. That you, as the holder of that device, would have a legal obligation to provide every governmental
Right.
communication that you have.
That makes sense.
But right now, there's no general
And if
guidance or rule.
there is no, I think it was a surprise to most governmental lawyers that the Court of Appeals ruled the way it did. I think most public entity lawyers have been advising their board members and council members, you should at least cautiously believe that you might have to disclose what's on your personal computer about that was governmental business.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, General Manager's Report.
Treasurer's report?
Oh, sorry, I missed you.
Um,
Treasurer's Report, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think, I'm feeling a little bit nauseous right now, and I think even leading up to it, I had, reading the agenda and some of the things we were talking about. I was concerned with the, kind of almost, gave me the impression of a startup company raising a lot of money and just kind of going out there all over the place in terms of expenditures. I think that the comparison is, as a treasurer, if I was elected and I'm treasurer of the board and I have, no right, no voice for people saying that we need to delay the biggest expenditure in the history of this board for something that doesn't directly benefit the community in terms of Parks and Recs.
If this is going to be discussed, I'd like to leave the room. I don't want to be part of a non-agenda discussion if there's any future issues.
It's a treasurer's report. I mean, what's the point of me?
You're not giving a treasurer's report. You're giving your opinion on the purchase again. which I don't want to be in the room when
Yeah,
it's
I
being discussed, so I'd
agree.
like to leave.
I would
Talk
ask,
while you want.
I would ask the president to move the agenda.
I was going to ask what this has to do with the state of the Treasury.
The state of the treasury, it's something that, as we leave the room tonight, it's completely out of our control in terms of where discussions and negotiations go, where we need to identify
I
what
think
we
you-
need
I
before we
believe-
identify what we
I think you have
want.
misapprehended the situation and repeatedly misstated it. Nothing is out of the board's control, and no real action has been taken. So, I think I agree with the other board members that this is not a treasurer's report, and thank you. General manager's report,
I've got nothing further.
administrator's report,
And nothing further to report.
I have a question on the administrator's report.
okay?
How do you pronounce the applicant's name for permit 3137?
Oh, come on.
Okay, moving on.
You want to start with your head?
Yes.
Yeah, Coach G.
So this is a mockery. We're gonna talk about pronunciations of last names, but we're not gonna talk about, we're gonna ignore the fact of, in terms of fiscal responsibility to what we were elected for.
Do you want it placed on the next public agenda, ask the board to do that?
I'm saying that we delay any negotiations. I'm asking the board,
We
you know.
don't have any negotiations because we
I'm
haven't
saying
talked about it yet.
we delay
You
the
can- I know, and you can
appointing
make-
Chuck Power.
And you can make that point. in
And
a
I'm
closed
trying to
session-
sway
in a
the board.
closed- In a closed session item.
Well-
Okay, because that's where we've got to talk
Ul-
about.
ul- Ultimately,
But that's when you're
Um,
giving. me
And I will make a
direction.
motion to bring this up again in the next meeting.
ultimately, as our previous general counsel said before Jonathan, he said to me when I was griping about something, he said, you can do anything you want with 3 votes. All right? When you can get to 3 votes, you'll get what you want, and not before then.
Doesn't matter what I want.
All right, let's keep to the agenda, please.
Okay, well, we are through the regular agenda, and the regular meeting is now adjourned.